Friends, I'm Ranjit Pawar, and on behalf of the Indo-Pak Peace Group, People for Peace and Change, I welcome you all for today's discussion on the International Women's Day theme for the year, Break the Bias. This is a call out for gender bias, discrimination, and stereotyping of women. And here we have some very good panelists who have done excellent work in their fields. We have panelists from Pakistan, India, and Canada, and one who just joined us from Myanmar. So through today's meeting, we hope to get a comparative picture of how women are doing in different countries and how we can build bridges, how we can get together and increase our power to fight the issues which are common or even those which are not common in different countries. I will begin by introducing our panelists today. We are really honored and delighted to have with us today Shima Kirmani from Pakistan, the founder of Tehreek-e-Niswan. She is a classical dancer, choreographer, and a prominent theater artist. She was shortlisted as one of the Peace Women for the Nobel Peace Prize in 2005. She has been awarded, honored, and felicitated many times over, and the list is really long for me to include here, for her stellar contribution to the cultural life of Pakistan, women's rights, and peace. Besides, she has, along with the team, performed in various countries over the globe, and we really hope that she can plan a trip to India soon.
Great, love to. Thank you, thank you.
So I also introduce to you Professor Jyoti Seth, a sociologist from India who has a specialization in gender studies and has been working for women and child rights for the last 36 years. She is currently deeply involved in research, nonprofit work, and gender training, and helping out women personally with their problems when nobody else will stand with them. Next, I'm going to introduce to you Hume Wasim. She is the younger voice in the panel today. She's a journalist, stand-up comedian, and yoga teacher from Pakistan, Islamabad. She currently hosts a web series, Deep Dive with Hume, discussing issues faced by millennials and women's rights, and she's also passionately concerned with the mental health of women. Our last panelist from Canada has not joined yet, so I hope that she will join in time and we will start our discussion meanwhile. So my first question is for Shima. Shima, your career has put you on the center stage, literally and figuratively. And I take this word from the book that you have written, Center Stage. So did you face any hurdles in getting there?
Well, yes, of course. I mean, I live in a society that, as you all know, is highly male-dominated, totally patriarchal, and very anti-arts, anti-culture, anti-music, you know, and totally anti-dance. Not anti-dance in the Bollywood way, but anti-classical dance. So I actually chose all those things which were difficult in this society, and at a time when dance was actually banned in Pakistan. I mean, I chose to study. I went to India in 1981 Tiswinton Ziaul-Haq had come into power and banned dancing, and I chose to make that my profession, so to say. And so the hurdles have been from the state level, the hurdles have been from the government level, the hurdles now are from the fundamentalist right-wing groups who think that a woman who dances should be shot, should not be allowed in this society, things like that. So of course there has been discrimination along the way, hurdles like this, but I've survived and I'm here. So it is possible, one may say. And also, I mean, I have managed, because I've made myself a little diverse, I also went into theater. So I mean, I look at performing arts in a holistic way, that it's not only that I'm a dancer, but I can act, I can produce plays, I can direct plays, I can be on theater, I can be on television. So those kind of things gave me the possibility to actually earn my living also through this work, because I didn't want to be doing a 9-to-5 job and then doing this, which is never possible, because the arts are so demanding, especially the classical arts. So I have done this kind of full time in my life.
It is really amazing, Seema. That is what was on my mind, that you picked up a very unconventional career.
Absolutely.
In a society where it was not acceptable. And yet you reached the heights which must have made people rethink about raising objections. And I think your success might have made a point, and maybe, they have quietened down. Is that right?
No, in fact, I think, I mean, actually, I wouldn't say that I'm a successful artist, because I'm not in the mainstream of the arts. I'm, as probably classical artist is not generally in the mainstream, unless he or she makes it very big in their specialization. So here, actually, arts is not something hugely part of the society. I mean, you're always on the periphery if you're an artist. So I'm not in the mainstream. I'm not successful in the sense that I do not get national awards or things like that. I am more of I mean, I'm considered quite subversive in my work, and so I'm a political artist. So it has different connotations. But because I'm involved in so many things, I'm involved in women's rights issues, I'm involved in peace rights issues. So all of that brings me into the mainstream of politics, in a sense, in this country. But as an artist, I don't think people really. It's now, I mean, imagine that I've been into it for more than 40 years now. I mean, I'm 70 years old, and I started when I was in my 20s. It has been a long journey, and it has taken me all these years to be accepted in this society. Initially, I was not. I mean, I was just. I looked down upon. In fact, as you know, female dancers in Pakistan are really, so the worst on the ladder of anywhere. So it has been a long journey and a difficult one, often fighting with the state and the government, and now fighting with anyone who I don't know, who anyone in my audience can decide that, this is what she's doing is un-Islamic, so get up and kill her. So, and that's how it has changed. It's become worse in the sense that now you don't know who your enemy is, because earlier you knew that the dance was banned, the state will not allow it, so you had to find ways to do it. And then you do find ways to do it, as you know. There's subversive art all over the world. When there are fascist governments, when there are military dictatorships, people still manage to continue doing what they're. So we managed to do it in that time. But now it is like, and it has always been at the risk of one's life, which continues today and has become more so, I feel, at this point.
Your story is truly inspiring, Seema, and I applaud your courage.
Thank you.
And you are very modest, but I think that you are doubly successful when you have to cross over so many hurdles to reach where you have reached, it's really, really appreciable, really appreciable.
Right.
So, Humi, taking on from there, I would ask you that even what you have chosen to do, that is a stand-up comedian, that is again a very unconventional choice. So, would you say that you have had hurdles too, or did you find support and acceptance?
Yes, definitely. There were so many hurdles. But I knew since a very young age that I wanted to do comedy. I would direct and act in skits back in school when I was very young. But I knew getting there would be so difficult. So I started with script writing and I got the hang of writing comedy. And then if you've heard of Aurat Nag, they're a stand-up comedy.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So I heard that they were coming to my city in Islamabad. They're originally from Karachi and then they performed in Lahore. So when they came to Islamabad, I was so excited and I just grabbed the opportunity by the horns. And there were 10 of us, so 10 women, and we were mentored by one male comedian. And, you know, doing anything in a group makes it so much more easier because you have that moral support. So we trained for a month and we wrote our sets and we polished our sets and we gave each other lots of mentoring and support. And I didn't tell my family because I knew they wouldn't let me do it. I didn't even call my family to the first few shows. But, you know, I had to travel for one of my shows to Lahore and my father said, you can't go alone. Your mother is going to accompany you. And I took her along with me, but she was really shell-shocked when she got there because women were talking so unabashedly about their issues. And, you know, women were also using terms that are not considered couth, you know, not considered, you know, Sharif women don't use such terms. Women were also cursing. But it was in a context, you know, we were trying to explain the frustration that we go through being in Pakistan. So my mother still doesn't approve of it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to stop doing it. It makes it all the more exciting, I would say.
Great, great. Jyoti, the next question is for you. The Indian Constitution provides gender equality, so as to say. How far do you think it actually translates into reality?
Mine will be, I think, a more academic and feminist framework that I'm going to be talking about. But Shima and Hume, very interesting stories of your personal lives. I've taken a conventional gender occupation. I teach sociology, but it was my choice, not because it was a gendered occupation. But I've also been in activism. So social work is also looked down upon in India. So often I was told, "Achha, social work karte hain, aapke paas bahut samay hoga." So, you know, these are things I know you must have struggled with and I've struggled with. But coming to Ranjit's question, as the Constitution of India does say that all men and women are equal, a lot of our instruments which are of governance also talk about equality. The women's movement for several years has worked towards gender parity. However, this is the theoretical framework or the written framework, and educated people know about it. But there is another side of the story, and the other set of rules are the gendered rules, which are more operational, which are pervasive. And this gendering begins very young, and the whole socialization process and conditioning of girls and boys is completely gendered. So it is these other set of rules which are more acceptable and which also are the constraining forces which become the social construction of gender in society. If we look at women's placement, I would like to look at it in the context of class, of religion, of endogamy, which is caste-based, and how the religion, social, cultural practices, so to say, stereotype our lives. So if you look at class, I'm just looking at the three classes, the lower class women actually are very dynamic. They begin work at a very young age, but they lack the opportunity of learning, of education, and also the whole process of experiential knowledge of theirs is very different, but the awareness aspect is missing. Their labor, their labor is not recognized by society. It is unorganized generally as an unorganized sector. But the labor which they contribute for home is also not recognized. Their economic contributions are used, but they are still slaves of the slave.
Yeah.
They still remain subordinate.
Yeah.
The middle class women is interesting. We can look at the middle class women in two ways. And one is that they are getting the opportunity, or they seek opportunities of education, learning, awareness. And here it's an interesting thing. The subjects we choose are so gendered. The professions we are kind of trained for, or so to say, open for us, are gendered. And a lot of my students will say, "Hum naukri karenge tab jab wo chahenge." When after marriage, if the husband's family allows them to work, they will work. Now, this is problematic for me. And this is, I think, in Pakistan and India and a lot of places as well.
Yeah.
However, there is a small silver lining, which I would say that there are institutions, educational institutions, NGO interventions, and other interventions, which are helping women to think differently, to also make choices. And this is very interesting, where the aspirations of women are changing. And I work in Himachal and Chandigarh and some parts of Punjab. And a lot of young women will say they want to join the police force, they want to join the army, and they want to take managerial positions. Now, this is very, very interesting trends of change. However, it does not say that they still work or think in the framework of marriage, of motherhood, and caregiving gendered roles. So they're still stuck there with the middle class women as well. For the upper class woman, they seem to be more conservative, actually. So they seemingly are progressive, they seemingly have more opportunity, but when it comes to management of resources and control of resources, it is in the hands of men.
That's
so
right.
if you, and then it is this whole framework of religion, socio-cultural practices, which again subordinate women, and the patriarchal game of isolating women and also just excluding them. The social, the social inclusion doesn't happen, so that we remain isolated. And when we are isolated, we kind of get low self-esteem, because with the constant patriarchal domination happens on us. I don't know if you'll be interested in statistics. I don't think, Ranjit, we're interested in such statistics, are we?
I would just want to know, on a comparative basis, the basic statistics that regarding education, regarding health, regarding child marriages, if any of you have it, so that we can compare it across the countries. That's all.
Yep, I have the education data for India. And this. I think we need to really look at it in a specific manner. The literacy rate in India of male and females is 84.7% male, and females are 70.3%. So there is a gender gap. But the whole thing is, we have to look at it in the context of dropouts of girls. So, and primary level, 4.1% dropouts. At secondary level, it's 16.9% dropouts. See, also the sex ratio, when we look at a sex ratio at birth, and then from 0 to 1, it declines. Then from 1 to 6, it declines. And then there is a disappearing of girls from 14 to 18. Now, these are very, very stark statistical analysis, which say a lot. Child marriage exists in India. 80.9 million girls are married below the age of 14. And if you look at the safety concerns, the National Crime Bureau has reported alarming number of kidnapping, abduction, sexual offenses against children, and 28% of rape victims are girls below the age of 18.
Yeah.
And see, all this affects their health, their physical, mental, emotional, sexual, reproductive health. And also when we talk about employment, does literacy rate translate into employment? It's interesting that I was reading that the enrollment for MPhil students is more of girls than boys in universities in India.
Even in Pakistan.
But it does not translate into the occupational sections. So we have MBAs, we have doctors, we have trained professionals who are not working. And out of those, very few are those women who have chosen not to work. The rest are the pressure of not being employed. So the workforce participation of women is much lower. And in the last 2 years of the pandemic, it has gone down even further. And the Economic Forum latest report says that India has come down 28 points. We are 140 under 156 countries in the employment gap ratio.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. So can we have some statistics from Ashima? Would you have?
Yes. So first thing that, I mean, of course, India is much more, but Pakistan is the 5th most populous country of the world. And with a population of so what the census says, which actually the population is more, but the census says it's 228 million people. But the statistics go exactly in the same kind of way as you defined, Dr. Jyoti, that out of primary school, at the primary school level, 32% of female students are out of school. I mean, and by grade 6, as they go further, 59% drop out of school.
Oh my God.
And by 9th grade, 13% of the girls are not to be seen at all in education. So even though at the university level, as you said, there are more female students than male students doing their masters, doing their MPhils, but they don't take this any further, because the minute girls get married, then, as you said, it is ke wo ijazat denge to phir karenge. And jobs are also looked at as agar zarurat hoti hai, matlab at that level, not at the working class level. Of course, at the working class level, women are working because they just have to work, and often they're the heads of their households, and their men are often not working. Even in the agriculture sector, women do a lot more work, and men are just, I mean, they're into smoking and whatever. And in the labor force, 25% of female labor force, there's only 25% in the labor force, the female. This is a World Bank issue. So, and health, that is just, I mean, those statistics are very pathetic, because there are very few healthcare facilities. So women have to travel miles to get to hospitals just for deliveries, especially from rural areas. And there's a lot of untrained dyes, not the trained dyes. I mean, we support. In fact, I work with a hospital that trains dyes, and so we support the dye system, but if only if they're trained. But normally they are untrained, and so they have no sense of hygiene, and that's why a lot of women, the death rate of women from pregnancy is so high. I mean, I was told by a doctor yesterday that in every 38 women, I mean, if there are 30 women, 3 die in pregnancy.
Childbirth.
Yeah, childbirth. And women's lifespan in Pakistan is maximum 50 years.
Oh my God, that is shocking.
Yes. And there is, of course, there's a lot of domestic violence, there's a lot of sexual abuse, rape goes totally unpunished. we're still fighting these issues of what was the Zina ordinance, in which I don't know if you know about that. I think that's a very something that I should tell you about, that this is when General Ziaul Haq brought these anti-women so-called Islamic laws. Rape actually then came under Zina, which means adultery, which means that if I'm raped and if I cannot find 4 male adult witnesses, then and I report that rape, then at the end of that case, I am told that I have committed adultery, and it can go in for zina, which is punishment by whipping or by many, many years imprisonment. So this used to happen a lot, started happening at that time from 1980s onwards, and continued. But right now there's there's a little freeze on that in that area. But every time it is the woman who's the person who's the survivor is the one who's pointed at as having, there was this very big, who may remember, there was a very big highway rape case that this woman driving with her children on the highway was raped by a couple of men. And everyone said, oh, well, why was she driving on the highway at that time of the night? Those kind of things. So it's all, there needs a system. What we need is a systematic change, the mindsets, the values that we attach to men and women and to relationships and to genders. So that value system is what is, because I think at least in the Sindh government, because I live in Karachi, we have brought in quite a few very positive pro-women laws, but the implementation is impossible and is not carried on. And I mean, like for instance, early marriage, you mentioned Dr. Jyoti, early marriage. So Sindh government has said, has an ordinance that under 18 is illegal. But it is rampant, it is rampant. And they've even put a punishment on it, but it never happens, that anybody gets punished or stopped for marrying their daughter who is less than 18. Here I'd like to just add in that the kind of work I do using theater and performances to give these messages, so we talk about this law and we say that if you do this to your son or daughter or your son for that matter, then you will be, you're liable to be imprisoned, you are liable to pay a fine and things. So we carry messages and about rights issues through our performances. Yes, sorry.
Right. I just wanted to add that in the Nirbhaya case in India, a similar thing happened, Shima, because everybody said, why was she out at night in a bus?
Right.
And just because she was with a guy, that made it very, very, kind of acceptable in certain ways, but he was a boyfriend. So there was a lot of flack about it. And everybody said, why was she there? And I also want to say that we also use theater, music, and dance as mediums of awareness, which is a very fabulous method of communication.
So, Homi, I come back to you. Now, what difference do you find between how things were in your mother's time and how they are now? Is there much of change or no?
There is definitely change, but we've had to really fight for it. So her brothers didn't really allow her to go and watch those films. But now we do have access to a lot of the media, and we're also participating in the media. Another thing that was different was that mother was not allowed to travel. And I was the first woman in my family to travel solo. So I went to Turkey when I was 21 for an internship, and my mother could not have imagined that. What else has changed? We now have more women who are pursuing higher education. So we have more graduates now and more undergrads as well. We also have the first women bank. So we have banks. We have this bank in Karachi where all the employees are women. And we also have more women in politics now. And things like marital rape are being discussed. Back in those days, I don't think women even knew that this was a crime or this was unacceptable.
So what would you want to change? Let's take up 2 major points which you think you are disturbed about and you would like to change for Pakistani women.
So one thing we've already touched upon it, Shimati has touched upon it, I've written it, is that this gender-based character assassination, which also leads to victim blaming.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example. I'm against smoking, but if a man smokes and a woman smokes, a woman's character would be attacked, that, she is unpious, she's not sharif, she will not get rishte, and what will people say? Log kya kahenge? But if a man smokes, it's just, oh, he has a bad habit. So why are women judged differently? And another thing that I would want is for women to be able to reclaim public spaces. If you go out in public in Pakistan, you hardly see any women. And we are dissuaded from our families. We're discouraged from going out. And when we do go out, we are met with so much attention. Men tend to stare a lot. So it's very uncomfortable for us. And if we don't reclaim public spaces, then we are giving away our power and our communities as well.
Absolutely. I think that is a very important point.
Yeah.
So
can I add to that?
Yeah.
Can I add to what you have said? Because I think it was a pertinent question that you asked, that what kind of change we would like to see. I think in Pakistan, where the female population actually is 48%, which is unusual. Usually the female population is larger, but here it's 48%. So of the population. So there is this whole attitude for that, a woman is totally dispensable. I mean, there's no value to her life. You can kill her and say, oh, she did a dishonorable act, so I'm killing her in the name of honor, so-called. You can throw acid on her face, you can abuse her, you can exploit her, you can beat her. And there's a lot of violence, a lot of abuse. I think that is something that needs to be considered, that women are equal human beings. That whole question of equal human beings, equal citizens, that just does not enter the dialogue, which has only entered the narrative in Pakistan since we've started doing the Aurat March in the last 5 years, and now everybody is talking about it. So at least we've pushed that barrier and broken those patriarchal structure, shaken them up, that now men feel, oh, they're losing their control. The other thing I think which is very important is how everything is interpreted through the lens of religion. And so it is very easy to say, oh, Shima, well, look at her. She's wearing a bindya, she's wearing a sleeveless, so she's not a Muslim. And so you put her into blasphemy, or so see, and the work that we do, like what she mentioned, being a female comedian or a female classical dancer or an actress for that matter, anything that is sort of not the norm in a sense, is then looked at from the religious point of view. But where does any religious text say that you may not be a dancer or a comedian? Obviously, they don't say things like that. But, it's very difficult to have this dialogue here, because there's no tolerance or acceptance of these kind of even the dialogue that.
Absolutely, I think you've spoken for both countries when you've said that
Yeah.
women have to be allowed to make their choices, and their choices
Absolutely.
have to be respected.
Absolutely.
And they have to be seen and valued as human beings who are productive, who are giving a lot to society, and who are not there to be victimized.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes, Sume, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say that we have a lot of black and white thinking in Pakistan. So it's just judged that dancing is bad, doing stand-up comedy is bad, and it's inherently morally corrupt, which is not true. Dancing can be, and even comedy can be, tools to help you with your mental health issues. It can create a sense of community. People who are listening to you, watching you dance, they would feel so much better, and this whole nation is very traumatized, if I'm being very honest. So we need more people in this industry, and people need to realize the value that it brings.
Right. Thank you. Jyoti, coming back to you, would you highlight the challenges faced by women professionals in India today?
Yeah, sure. First, I just wanted to add a bit to Hume and Shima that, and you, as you said, that women should be able to make their choices, but also their voices need to be heard.
Yes,
And we also
absolutely.
need to find our voices to stand up and be heard and be respected for our identity, for our individuality, not merely being women.
Yeah.
And the other thing which I think which is very, very important is to work with a collective expression. And that collectivity and unity, I think, across societies, across nations, will help us to have that strength to support each other so that we are not isolated individuals. We are a collective. And you know that the Me Too movement, because it was a collective, also found ground.
Yeah.
That's essential, I think. Reaching out to each other, supporting each other, that is the only way forward.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The sisterhood jhanda has to come up now. We have to all take it in our hands, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So coming to the challenges that Ranjit was asking, I was looking at the challenges faced by professional women more. Because all women in the workforce face challenges, the women in the organized sector face tremendous challenges. We notice that there are certain kinds of jobs that men do not do, even in the unorganized sector. If it is carrying bricks on your head, it is the women who are carrying bricks. The men will not carry the bricks, they'll be the masons. So there is a whole hierarchy of work there also, and how women's work remains unorganized in the unorganized sector, whether it is working on the land, and her inputs are never taken. But in the professional sphere, it is very, very alarming. We know that there is a glass ceiling, so women tend to be stuck at a particular point. But that is a fact, and it does happen that they do not reach the top. But even as they reach the top, there is a lot of gender wage gap over there. But the opposite is the sticky floor effect, where discrimination happens at the time of recruitment, where men and women with similar qualifications are given different statuses and different wage, allocations. And this glass ceiling effect results in the glass cliff effect. So these are very alarming, and we need to recognize these. The worst among this is the gaslighting of effect, where women's abilities and their capabilities are subtly, overtly undermined by men in a manner so that they have low self-esteem, and they are characterized as hysterical, being very emotional and not capable. And this kind of seeps into them because our conditioning is also kind of stereotypical, and we need to come out of this whole thing and counter it as a collective, so that this whole gaslighting effect does not happen in our personal lives and in our professional lives. So the challenges, which is also safe spaces, harassment at workplace. Of course, we have the Sexual Harassment Act at workplace now in India after Bhamri Devi's whole issue, which happened, and how she was raped by men at her workplace. She was a social worker, and she was trying to stop a marriage which was happening between a 6-month-old girl and an infant boy. And she was a social worker, and she was raped afterwards. She was raped in her fields. So it came to the Supreme Court, and then this whole judgment happened, and the Vishakha case became the Sexual Harassment Act now, which is now existing in all institutions. But again, the implementation of these acts and these laws needs to be more rigorous. Reporting has increased, yes, but also the fact that women as survivors need a different kind of support is a challenge. And we, again, coming back to the fact that as collectives, as a community of women, need to support each other.
Absolutely.
So I would like to add a little here, having worked in the government sector for so many years, that sexual harassment can be of many subtle ways. where you cannot put your finger on it, where you cannot have the man persecuted for really physical harassment, but they will find ways to sap your confidence through sexual innuendos in various ways. So that very much, and it makes the women nervous. It would make them avoid doing what they have to do. So that is one thing which women need to totally ignore and give it back, I guess. Give it back to the man. Harass him if he is doing that. Say something equally stupid to him. Frankly, I would say that too. And secondly, women do not network as much as men do in professions. That's one big setback. They do not sit in the evenings over drinks. They do not keep visiting people who matter, who will promote their careers. Yeah. So over there, women ought to come together and network with each other at least and support each other. That is, I think, crucial to get ahead, because we know how important a part networking plays in getting ahead in professions. Yeah. We need child care facilities in every working place. And that is essential for women to be at peace and to focus more on their work, not worrying all the time whether their 3-year toddler at home has been fed or not. Because the child belongs both to men and women, and yet gender-wise, it is women who is the nurturer and who is going to take care. So then give them facilities for it.
So actually, everything needs to be redefined, right? I mean, they redefine the roles of mother and father, because it's just taken for granted that you will work, whether you're working in an office or in a factory or wherever you're working, you will work, but it's taken for granted. You look after the children, you take care of the food, you look after a husband, you do the ironing, washing, cooking, whatever.
Absolutely.
It's just, all these things need to be redefined and rechanged and rethought, but it's not easy.
Yeah, most of my women friends in the women's movement, the senior ones who are now 80 plus, they say our biggest failure has been that we worked with women to generate awareness and we did not work with the men. And now we seriously need to work with men to generate this awareness that patriarchy is, that entitlement is not always yours. And it's a partnership that we work with.
This was just a thought that I wanted to share with all of you, something that I felt very strongly about. We talk about feminism and we find that women do more damage to other women. A mother is more cruel to her daughter in terms of discipline and everything, and very, very lenient, so to say, with the son because she has a male offspring that she can brag about. There's a comedian by the name of Amit Tandon who once said that the only job of an Indian guy is to be born. After that, he doesn't need to do anything else. This is so true because all of us as mothers do make our sons good for nothing. We don't teach them to take care of themselves. We don't equip them to deal with their lives on their own. They're so dependent on women, mother, sister, wife. Don't you think that this movement should be to educate our sons completely?
Absolutely.
Socialization has to improve. It is the onus of the mother to make her son a finer human being than what he is. He has to learn to respect his mother. He has to learn to respect his sister. And he has to learn that women are not commodities. Women are as human and as alive and thinking as he is.
Absolutely, that is where it should start.
I feel this is something which is missing in most societies. We are so forgiving of men and their misdeeds and so unforgiving of women, even when they make the slightest mistake.
So here I would invite the two men present to answer or to protest or to support what she says. Vikramji and Avijit.
We support what ma'am is saying because it's true, and it's responsibility of the women in the family to give the right knowledge to both men and women, male and female child equally. And then there is also a responsibility on the male people to respect females with equality and dignity. So I guess we will see better things coming up because people are talking about it, and that's where the change starts, I guess.
Thank you, Abhijit.
In 90s, that missing woman of the world. तो साउथ एशिया की जो विमेन थी वो लास्ट स्टैंड पे और वर्स्ट पे खड़ी हैं। और जे मैं वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम की बात करूं 2020 की, तो उसमें जो अपनी 156 कंट्रीज की उन्होंने स्टडी की है, और साउथ एशिया जो है, जो 4 गैप्स हैं, जेंडर के 4 गैप्स आमतौर पे माने गए हैं जो वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमिक फोरम करता है, उसमें है वुमेन की पॉलिटिकल पार्टिसिपेशन, इकोनॉमिक पार्टिसिपेशन, उनकी एजुकेशन और हेल्थ। उसमें साउथ एशिया जो है वो वर्स्ट पे है। बांग्लादेश काफी फिर भी हमारे से बेटर है, 65 उसका रैंक है। अगर 156 की कंट्रीज की हुई है तो 140 पे इंडिया खड़ा है। पाकिस्तान
153, पाकिस्तान 153
पे खड़ा है। मैं 2020 की रिपोर्ट की बात कर रही हूँ, और पाकिस्तान 153 पे खड़ा है। अफगानिस्तान लास्ट एंड पे खड़ा है 156 नंबर पे। दिस इज द टोटल position, the situation, the worst situation of the women of the world। जेमे नस्बमदी जो फिलोसोफर हुई है वुमेन जस्टिस पे या टोटल जस्टिस पे वो बात करती हैं, तो वो ये कहती हैं कि दुनिया की कोई भी जो, चाहे वो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज हैं चाहे डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज है, विमेन एज अ बीइंग कहीं सेफ नहीं। तो अगर नॉर्वे, फिनलैंड ये कंट्रीज हैं जो डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज हैं, इनमें जेंडर गैप्स नहीं है, बाकी जेंडर गैप्स बहुत ज्यादा हैं और हम वर्स्ट हैं। और इंडिया और चाइना 2 कंट्रीज को अगर लिया जाए तो ऑलमोस्ट 10 लाख से ज्यादा हर साल जो है, इससे ज्यादा वो हो रहा है अपना। अभी भी इन्फेंटिसाइड एंड फ्यूटिसाइड की प्रॉब्लम है दोनों कंट्रीज को लगा के, एशिया विमेन की अगर मैं बात इस सेंस में करती हूँ।
And now I would like to wind up because it has gone way long than what we had anticipated. But here again, Shima, Indu, Hume, Jyoti, Anu, whoever who is standing for peace, who is speaking up for Indo-Pak peace, I want to wind up with this, that this is very significant for women. Because all the money that we are wasting on arms accumulation can go for progress of women, for education of women, for health of women. We can come together, which will make us the strongest force in Southeast Asia if India and Pakistan stand together.
Absolutely.
And so it is directly related to peace. Efforts are directly related to our well-being, to our progress, and to our empowerment.
Yeah.
So to empowerment, yes, you may.
Yes, I wanted to make a suggestion. I think we should have these sessions regularly because it connects you with the spirit of sisterhood and, you know, that fighter spirit that you very easily lose when you're living in Pakistan.
Absolutely. But I salute the women in Pakistan and your grit and determination and your courage to stand up. So here's to being together, and we shall definitely take up this suggestion, Yumi, and we will keep getting in touch. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very,
And
very
bye-bye.
grateful to you for joining us.
It was lovely.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.